Hey, this past weekend I was at Origins Game Fair and I got to try out a ton of new games that are either just released or about to be released. So I thought I would give you my thoughts on all those games. Hopefully that's interesting to you. If not, I don't know what you're doing on this video. But I'm not going to go in super depth about like the fair in general and all that kind of stuff. Just know it was a lot of fun. It was great. I got to play a lot of games, so that was really exciting. So this is mainly just going to be quick kind of overviews of each of the game and my thoughts of them. I'm going to do them in chronological order, in the order that I played them, so there's no preference on like the last one's best or the first one's best or any of that stuff. So yeah, let's get right into that. Up first is Crazy Karts. This is the new game from Portal. It is a action programming game where you play on teams where one player kind of mainly does the driving of the cart and the other player mainly does the offense of the cart, but you can't communicate with each other really between rounds or anything like that, so a lot of like mayhem ensues as miscommunication abounds. I played it with 6 players, so that was a lot of fun. So there were 3 different carts. It's a game that fits a lot of players, and I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't exactly what I expected it to be, which I don't know how much of that played into my reception of it. I would definitely play it again. I don't know if I would buy it. It's certainly a game that if you have a lot of people that play regularly, like if you regularly have game nights where 8 people want to play the same game, it's really good for that. And it's really good for like a convention game like we played it, where it's just silly, fun, craziness abounds. So yeah, I had a good time. Next, I bought and played Sushi Go Party. This was a game that I was very much looking forward to. I think Sushi Go is one of my favorite gateway games for people to kind of introduce new people into games. It's also one of my favorite filler games. So Sushi Go Party is basically exactly Sushi Go. In fact, it comes with all of the base cards of Sushi Go. So if you don't own Sushi Go yet, but you want it, you don't need to buy it. You can just buy Sushi Go Party and you get all of Sushi Go. But it also adds in probably a dozen new cards, where each game you pick which ones you want to play with. For example, I don't remember exactly, but it's like you'll have 3 appetizers and 2 sushi rolls and 1 dessert and 2 special orders or something like that. So you pick like these different categories of cards and you put them all together and then you play the game. So you can play like they have recommended play styles, or you can just randomize and shuffle up. I wound up playing this game like 5, 6, 7 times over the course of the weekend because a lot of people were excited to try it out, and it plays quickly and can fit a lot of players. And it's great. It's what you love about Sushi Go, but more. There's more variety. I played it with all sorts of different player counts. Going up to 8 players, scoring took quite a while between rounds, so it kind of like didn't feel like that quick of a game. That being said, it plays fine with 8 players and everything worked. So yeah, I highly recommend this the same way I highly recommend Sushi Go. And if you don't own Sushi Go yet, don't buy Sushi Go, just buy Sushi Go Party, because now I have like 2 of the same thing, so I'm just going to give my Sushi Go to somebody. But one thing, the components were very poorly made. It's very mass market, so a lot of my cards had defects on them. The card print colors were slightly different across the same type of card. The card sizes were not exactly consistent either. None of that really bothers me because it's kind of like a pub game that it's going to get trashed anyway, where I'm going to play it so much and I'm going to play it in environments where I wouldn't necessarily play some of my other games. So not a big deal, but if you get really bothered by that stuff, then you're going to get really bothered by it in Sushi Go Party. Junk Art really surprised me. I was expecting that this would be a game that I would play at cons and kind of enjoy it at cons, but never really want to own it or play it outside of it. Pretty much my same feelings with Flick 'em Up, where I think Flick 'em Up's a fine game, but I don't particularly want to own a copy of it. But I got to try out Junk Art and I was blown away. I really, really liked it. I bought a copy there. I played it like 3 or 4 times at Origins. I've played it since Origins with my home game group. So I really dug this game. Basically, it's a dexterity stacking game where you have all sorts of different colored and shaped bits that are all weird shapes, and you're trying to stack them because you're junk artists and you're trying to be the best junk artist. It's really smart where you play 3 rounds, but each round is like a different challenge, where maybe one's a speed round where you flip a card and everybody has to find that piece and put it on their sculpture, and the last person to do it doesn't get to place it on their sculpture, and then you get points for however many pieces you have on your sculpture. Or maybe it's a thing where you have a central sculpture in the middle of the table that everybody's trying to build on, and you lose points if you knock stuff off. Or you have your own personal sculpture, and you draw 3 cards, and you keep one of them and hand one to the person on your left and the person on your right, and you have to put all of those things on your junk art. And so there are like 15 different possible things that you'll do on a round. So there's a lot of variety in the game. And it's also very variable. Like it changes a lot game to game. I'm not a huge fan of speed things in games. It gives me anxiety. So I just took out the speed cards when I play. I played it once with a speed thing, and it was good, but it does make me like anxious. So it can also go for like different groups and stuff like that. So I really, really like this game. And of course, Pretzel Games does incredible, absurd production on all their games. So it's in a wooden box and all this stuff. So it's really, really nice to have on your shelf. I got to try Mystic Vale, the new kind of card crafting system from AEG, which is a new thing that uses clear plastic cards, like the cards that are used in Gloom, if you've played that. And it's not really a deck building game. I mean, it is, but you're not building a deck. Like, you never add new cards to your deck. You always have the same number of cards in your deck. But you put these clear cards into sleeves, so you're changing what each card does. So as you go, your cards will get better and have more abilities and produce you more currency and things like that. I really liked it. It's a very kind of laid back system. You can plan out your turn really, really well because you can basically see what you're going to have while somebody else is playing. Yeah, it was just a really cool laid back system. I don't know how much replay value it's going to have with the base box, because kind of surprisingly, the base box comes with all of the cards you play in one game, where normally deck builders like Dominion or any of those come with a whole variety of cards, so right out of the gate you have a bunch of variability. I know that they're already doing expansions, so there will be variability. It was just kind of an odd choice to not include it in the base box. But that being said, I mean, I'm sure that there's plenty of game for like normal amounts of playing the game. So I'm definitely excited to pick it up once they actually have copies available. Next, I played Yokohama. This was a Hisashi Hayashi game that came out in Japan and has since been licensed by Tasty Minstrel Games and is, in fact, on Kickstarter right now for Tasty Minstrel. They're doing a deluxe edition, so that should be stateside in the next couple months. This game looked insane on the table. I posted a picture of just what it looks like on a table, and I had like a dozen comments of people going like, "What in the world? That looks crazy!" Because the board is these variable cards, so they can go in any order, but there's so much stuff going on. It looks really, really intimidating. But the actual gameplay really isn't that tough. It's pretty simple. Turns went pretty quickly, and it's really easy to kind of understand everything going on. It's kind of an interesting game where it's using like worker placement. You have basically one worker that's going to activate actions. That's your worker placement, but you place cubes on your turn, and that's generally where the worker can move. So like if you have a card with a cube here and a card with a cube here, you can move there, or you can move across all those. But then you get to activate the action based on how many cubes and counting your worker are on the card, and then you can also augment that in other ways. So if there are 3 cubes in your worker, you get to activate it on level 4, which there are generally 5 levels on the cards, and each level is better than the previous level. So it's definitely a game about maximizing your efficiency and things like that. There's a lot of different ways to do things in the game, so it's not a game that like blocks you from stuff. It's just you're not going to be doing it as efficiently. So I really enjoyed it. It's a solid midweight game. So yeah, I would highly recommend it. Next, I tried Costa Rica, which is a very simple tile push your luck game that kind of uses the hey, that's my fish board that goes away throughout the game. I wasn't a huge fan of this one. It's very luck-based, which makes sense. It's a push your luck game, and I just don't really like push your luck games that much. So it's not any slight against the game that I didn't like it very much. It's just the mechanic I don't like very much. But basically you're trying to collect sets of different animals, and you do that by like going exploring, and you can like say when to quit, or you can keep going. But then if you get too many, I think, mosquitoes, you lose everything on your turn, and somebody else also has the option to jump in and get something. So it was okay. It was okay. I played Imhotep, which I had played a couple times back at BGG Spring, so now I think I have 5 or 6 plays of Imhotep under my belt. I really like this game. It is a game that didn't really strike me. I wasn't in love with it the first time I played it, but the more I've played it, the more and more I've liked it. It's a very simple game where you're placing cubes, and you can either put them on ships, or you can ship the ships and take them to the temple or the pyramids or whatever, which all score you points in different ways. So there's some push your luck, but it's very built into the game where I want to put this cube on this ship, but I'm afraid the person next to me will then ship that ship somewhere I don't want it to go, things like that. Or I bet this person's going to be shipping that ship to the pyramid and I really want to go there, so I'm going to put my cube on that ship. I'm saying the word ship an insane amount of times. But it's a very simple game that has, it can be very cutthroat for a light Euro, way more than most. But I've really enjoyed it with all the groups I've played with. It has some variability where the tile or the parts of the board can be flipped over and there's an A side and a B side. They score differently depending on which side is up, so it changes. Yeah, I really like the game. It's up for the Spiel right now. I don't think it'll win because I think Codenames will win, but definitely a good, solid game. All right, late at night at one of the bars, I played You Mad Bro, which is from Pretty Princess Games, which is a very simple push your luck game that I quite enjoyed. I know that I just said that I don't really like push your luck games, but I guess I like push your luck as a mechanic in a greater game, but I don't know, Costa Rica just didn't work for me. But You Mad Bro is just, it's the theme, and it's so quick, and it's so just kind of like a throwaway pub game that I really enjoyed it, where the theme is Cthulhu rose up in the ocean off New Jersey and died from all the pollution. So now Cthulhu's washed up on shore. So now all the frat bros are trying to impress their girlfriends by going and getting Cthulhu's tentacles. So you want to get the most Cthulhu tentacles without going mad, at which point you're mad, bro. But it's so simple. You're just pulling a card and it's either a tentacle or you mad, and you can stop at any point, and then at the end, once everybody's gone mad or stopped, the person with the most tentacles wins that round. It's one of those games that it was the correct environment where we're having some drinks and laughing and whatever. But yeah, it was a lot of fun for a really simple, tiny little, I think like 18 card game. Another game we played at the bar was called Dead Last, which this one wasn't even on my radar at all. But it turned out to really like it. I think I played it with 12 people. It plays a ton of people, and it's a social deduction game, sort of like Werewolf, but it's more of like a social manipulation kind of prisoner's dilemma game where basically you have everybody in the game as a color. So we had 12 different colors, and you have a minute and a half to convince everyone else or join with everyone else however you want. You can say whatever you want. You can show people your cards. You can leave the room. There's no rules in how you can collude. And everyone picks a card and reveals them. And the color that has the most votes, which your card is just the color, that person dies. But also everyone who didn't vote for that color also dies. So if 4 people vote for blue, but 6 people vote for red, not only is the red player dying, but the 4 people that voted for blue are also dying. So now it very quickly, the group gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the rounds are really quick. You only have a minute and a half, so it's not a big deal that there's player elimination. But there's also, I forget what it's called, let's say an assassin card. I don't think it's called that. But say the 6 people that had voted for red, if that red player had played their assassin card, they don't die, and instead they get to pick one of the players that voted for them that dies. So you can't just go like, all right, we're all going to vote for red, right? Yep, everybody agree and vote for red, because then they'll play the assassin card. But you can say that out loud, hoping that red will play the assassin card, but then secretly with the people next to you, like, wink and show blue, things like that. So there's a lot of guesswork involved. And then it generally gets down to only 2 people left, at which point you have the prisoner's dilemma thing where you have 4 treasure, and you're either going to steal all the treasure, you're going to split the treasure, or you're going to take one and run. So if both people don't choose split the treasure, then the person that said steal treasure doesn't get any treasure, blah, blah, blah. So you have to like agree, or you can still backstab. So it's a really fun, quick game. It's definitely a high tension stab your back game. So if you have people in your group that don't like that, or are going to get upset that everybody chose to kill them and laugh at that decision, then it's probably not for you. But as far as like a big group game, it's really good. As far as a social deduction game, it feels new and fresh, so I would highly recommend it if you're into those. I got to play The Networks, which is a new game that I think is about to ship, that was kickstarted a while back. That's kind of a Euro game, resource management game where you play a TV executive having to pick the correct shows and match them up with the correct stars and the correct ads and the correct time slots in order to get the most viewers, and viewers are points. This was, as for a Euro game, the theme was fantastic. It's a new creative theme, and it really played into the game. Like, there's a lot of humor in the game that comes out with the theme and all that stuff, and so it's a really good example of kind of like Euro mechanics mixing perfectly to create a thematic experience. So I definitely really liked that. It was pretty simple to learn. It's a relatively quick game for some Euros. So yeah, I highly recommend it, especially if you're the type of person that really wants theme and humor in your games. So a lot of Euros don't hit that for you. This is definitely one that will. And the last game I played was Beyond Baker Street, which is a new game that is basically Hanabi with the theme. It does a little bit more than Hanabi, but it is the game where you have cards that are facing away from you and your partner has cards that are facing away from them. So you can see what everyone else has, but that you can't see what you have. And you can choose to give your partner information, or you can choose to play a card. You're trying to solve cases by playing the correct number card and also getting an exact total. So if it's 10, you want to play like a 2, a 3, and a 5, things like that. So you kind of need to know what you have through deduction, which it's obviously a Sherlock Holmes game, which is a cool theme for that. You have variable player powers as well. So there's a little bit more replay value in the game. There's a little bit more going on. And there's also other things that need to be done beyond just the Hanabi, like play the cards in order of color. So there's a little bit more going on, but it's still very, very simple. If you've played Hanabi, it's immediately familiar and easy to pick up. So I definitely really liked it as, again, a good example of a theme matching with mechanics where Hanabi's theme is just kind of pasted on. So I'd really recommend it if you have a group that likes Hanabi and you want something more, or if you had a group where Hanabi didn't work because some people really want thematic stuff in their games, or you haven't tried Hanabi because it's kind of Hanabi, but not necessarily better, but certainly Hanabi, but different and more with a good theme and some nice artwork. So yeah, those were all the games that I played at Origins Game Fair that were new and had also come out. I played some prototypes and things that weren't exactly, but I didn't want to talk about them because who knows, they might change, things like that. And I also played a couple of older games, but I figured I wouldn't waste your time talking about those. So really good game fair. I would highly recommend going to Origins if you are into board games and want something that's more focused on playing games than Gen Con, where Gen Con's great, but Gen Con has a heavy focus on buying games and seeing all the new stuff and all that kind of stuff, where Origins, there's plenty of room to just sit down and play games. It's not nearly as fast-paced as Gen Con, but there's still tons and tons of people there. So I had a great time. I definitely will be doing it more in the future. So yeah, that was great. Up next, I'm going to be looking towards Gen Con. I'm probably going to be doing a video where I talk about my most anticipated Gen Con releases, so make sure to look at that if you're going to Gen Con or interested in kind of what's new and hot. I bet some of these games will be on it that haven't been released yet. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you watch every Wednesday for my board game news and subscribe and follow me on social media. I'm at Chris Bryan Games on Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought of these games or anything like that, and I'll see you on Wednesday.